They saw the trophies, the interviews, the polished smile under bright lights. What they didn't see were the nights he sat alone in a silent house, staring at the ceiling, wondering why success felt so empty. He built an empire from nothing. But somewhere along the way he lost himself. Daniel Carter learned early that applause could drown out pain. He was 17 when he decided that no one would ever look at him with pity again. Not after the eviction notice taped to their apartment door. Not after the neighbors whispered about his father leaving. Not after watching his mother, Evelyn, cry quietly at the kitchen table while pretending she was just tired. "I'm fine, Mom," he would say, even when he wasn't. Evelyn would force a smile. "I know you are, Danny. You've always been strong." Strong. He clung to that word like armor. At school, Daniel was quiet but observant. He watched the popular kids glide through hallways with confidence, watched teachers praise students who already seemed destined for something bigger. He told himself he would be bigger, larger than the small apartment, larger than the humiliation, larger than the ache in his chest. At night, while his mother slept on the worn-out couch because the bedroom window wouldn't close properly, Daniel sat at the tiny desk in his room, sketching business ideas in a spiral notebook. Websites, online marketplaces. He didn't fully understand how they would work, but he understood one thing clearly. Money meant safety. Success meant no more fear. By 23, Daniel Carter had built his first tech startup in a cramped garage with two college friends, Mark and Luis. The garage smelled like old oil and burnt coffee. They argued constantly. "This feature won't scale," Mark insisted one night, rubbing his temples. "It will," Daniel replied sharply. "It has to." Luis glanced between them. "We're running on 3 hours of sleep. Maybe we just need a break." Daniel didn't believe in breaks. Breaks were for people who could afford to slow down. He pushed harder, stayed later, learned faster. Investors began to notice. Meetings turned into contracts. Contracts turned into headlines. Local founder disrupts industry. Daniel Carter, the visionary CEO to watch. He kept copies of those articles, folded neatly in a drawer he never opened. The first time he saw his company logo on a massive billboard in downtown San Francisco, he stood on the sidewalk long after the light changed. "You did it," Mark said, clapping him on the shoulder. Daniel nodded. But inside something felt strangely quiet. He thought there would be fireworks, rush, sense of arrival. Instead there was just relief. Temporary relief. The money came fast after that. Faster than he expected. Investors lined up. His company valuation soared. Interviews, conferences, awards. He learned how to smile on cue, how to speak in polished sentences about innovation and impact. He bought a house in the hills, floor-to-ceiling windows, white marble counters, a view that stretched endlessly over the city lights. The first night he slept there, he couldn't fall asleep. The house was too quiet. He walked through empty rooms, his footsteps echoing. He opened the refrigerator just to hear a sound. He turned on the television and muted it, letting the flickering light fill the space. He thought of the old apartment, the hum of traffic, his mother's soft cough from the couch. He told himself this was better. This was winning. When he visited Evelyn the following weekend, she stood in the doorway of her small townhouse, eyes wide. "Danny, this car," she whispered, running her fingers along the sleek black exterior. "It's just a car, Mom," he said, trying to sound casual. She looked at him, really looked at him. "You don't have to prove anything anymore." He laughed softly. "I'm not proving anything." But he was. Every deal closed was proof he wasn't that scared kid anymore. Every award was proof he wouldn't end up like his father. Every article was proof that he mattered. At least, that's what he told himself. By 30, Daniel Carter was a household name in business magazines. His company expanded globally. He had a penthouse in New York, a vacation home in Malibu, a schedule booked months in advance. He also had insomnia and headaches, and a strange heaviness that settled in his chest when the applause faded. One evening after a major product launch, he stood backstage while the crowd roared his name. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. The lights were blinding. The music thumped. Confetti fell. He smiled and waved. But as he stepped off stage, the sound dropped away like someone had cut a cord. Mark approached him, breathless with excitement. That was insane. We just broke records. Daniel nodded. Good. That's it. Good. Mark laughed. You realize what we just did? Yeah, Daniel said quietly. What's next? Mark's smile faltered for a second. You don't ever stop, do you? Daniel didn't answer. Because if he stopped, he was afraid everything would catch up to him. The nights grew longer. He would sit at his kitchen island, laptop open, city lights reflecting in the glass, scrolling through emails he'd already answered. His phone buzzed constantly. Requests, invitations, opportunities. He accepted most of them. Busy meant safe. Busy meant he didn't have to think. One night, his phone lit up with a text from an old college acquaintance, Sophia Reyes. Hey superstar. Remember me? He stared at the message longer than necessary before replying. Of course. How've you been? They met for coffee a week later. Sophia was different from the people Daniel now surrounded himself with. She didn't talk about stock options or networking events. She talked about teaching art to middle schoolers. About how one of her students painted a mural of her grandmother. You should see it, she said, eyes shining. It's not perfect, but it's real. Daniel smiled. Real is good. She tilted her head. Are you happy, Daniel? The question hit harder than he expected. Of course, he said automatically. She didn't look convinced. You've built something incredible, she said gently. But you look tired. I just work a lot. That's not what I mean. He looked away, watching people pass by outside the cafe window. I'm fine, he said, softer this time. He had perfected that phrase. I'm fine. But that night, back in his quiet house, her words echoed. Are you happy? He opened his laptop and pulled up financial reports. Growth charts. Expansion plans. Proof. He was winning. So why did it feel like he was constantly running from something he couldn't name? He walked into the bathroom and stared at his reflection. Perfect suit. Clean haircut. Controlled expression. He leaned closer to the mirror. Who are you doing this for? He whispered. There was no answer. Just the faint hum of the house and the distant glow of a city that never seemed to sleep. And for the first time in years, Daniel Carter felt something crack beneath the surface he had so carefully built. He had everything he once dreamed of. So why did it feel like he was losing something he couldn't get back?